Freshwater flushing is one of the most important things you can do to take care of your outboard. It's easy to do, and by going through just a few simple steps, you can make sure your outboard's water pump and cooling system don't suffer from damage that can be caused by debris that can accumulate in the outboard's cooling passages. In fact, by regularly performing a freshwater flush after each use, you may also prevent corrosion that can result from increased engine and exhaust temperatures, also due to debris and buildup in the cooling system. Outboards should be flushed every time after use in salt or dirty water. Generally, there are 3 methods for freshwater flushing. 1. A flush attachment. 2. A flush bag. Or 3. Flush muffs. The first option for freshwater flushing is to use a built-in flushing device, which is a hose fitting usually located near the lower rear cowling. During this procedure, you will not run the engine. You can use the built-in device to flush your outboard either on a lift or in the water, but it does work best if you can trim the engine up so the gearcase is completely out of the water. Here's how to use a built-in flushing device to perform a freshwater flush on your outboard. 1. Connect a garden hose to the fitting on your outboard's flushing device. 2. Turn on the faucet. Let fresh water run through the outboard for 10 to 15 minutes. 3. Turn off the faucet and disconnect the hose. 4. Put the cap back on the engine's flushing device. Another method to use is a flush bag. Flush bags are sturdy, collapsible bags that fit under the lower unit of the outboard and fill with water. Outboards with more than one inlet on each side of the lower unit should be flushed using this method. Be aware that there are different bag designs, and some are intended to be used with the boat moored. You should always use a flush bag with the boat on a trailer or the boat moored. Here's how to use a flush bag to perform a freshwater flush on your outboard. Trim the outboard to the vertical position. Remove the propeller. Screw the garden hose into the connector on the bag. Turn on the water and fill the bag. Make sure the water level is as high as possible above the cooling water inlets on the lower unit. This will assure that the water pump is completely submerged. Start the outboard and set the throttle to no more than a fast idle. You only want about 800 to 900 RPM max. Watch for water coming out of the pilot tube at the lower rear of the cowling. Remember, it may take 20 to 30 seconds to fill the water passages before water will exit the pilot tube. Run the engine for 10 to 15 minutes. Stop the engine and then turn off the faucet. Very easy, but there are a few things you need to remember to make sure this process goes smoothly. Never run the engine without cooling water. Running the outboard with little or no cooling water will cause expensive overheating damage in a very short period of time. Turn the fresh water on before starting the engine and turn the water off after stopping the engine. Be sure to add water to the flush bag while the motor is running to maintain the maximum water level at all times, and never leave an outboard unattended while it is running. The third method works well for flushing lower units with a single pair of water inlets. It's the flush muffs method. Flush muffs are rubber cups that fit over the water inlets on the gearcase. One of the cups has a hose fitting. When you use a flush muff, you need to run the engine, but only after the garden hose is in place and the water is running. The flush muff method is best performed with the boat on a trailer or a lift, completely out of the water. Here's how to use flush muffs to perform a freshwater flush on your outboard. 1. Trim the outboard to the vertical position. 2. Remove the propeller. 3. Place the flush muffs over the water inlets on the gearcase. 4. Screw the garden hose onto the flush muff connector. 5. Turn the water on slowly until you can see a bit of water leaking from around the rubber cups. 6. Check to ensure the rubber cups are still in place over the inlets. 7. Start the outboard and set the throttle to no more than a fast idle. Around 800 to 900 RPM should do the trick. 8. Watch for water coming out of the pilot tube at the lower rear of the cowling. Increase the water flow, if necessary, to maintain a flow of water from the pilot tube. Keep in mind that it may take 20 to 30 seconds to fill the water passages before water will exit the pilot tube. 9. Run the engine for 10 to 15 minutes. 10. There should be some water exiting the back of the gear case through the exhaust. 11. Stop the engine and then turn off the faucet. Remember, never run the engine without cooling water. Running the outboard with little or no cooling water will cause expensive overheating damage in a very short period of time. Turn the fresh water on before starting the engine, and turn the water off after stopping the engine. Never leave an outboard unattended while it is running. There is no single best method for flushing an outboard motor. If you're trying to decide which method to use, just examine your circumstances. The flush attachment method is easiest and quickest for a boat that is moored. The flush bag method is particularly useful on motors with multiple inlets per side. The flush muff method and the bag method are the only methods to use when fogging carbureted engines for winter storage. What is important is to regularly check to see that the water inlet screens on the lower unit are clear and clean. Flushing your outboard with fresh water on a regular basis can go a long way toward extending the outboard's lifespan, especially for those who boat in salt water. Freshwater flushing is easy and cheap, and it's one of the most important things you can do to help maintain the life of your outboard, so keep the garden hose handy.